Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Watched, where on this episode I sat down to watch The Favorite from 2018. Now, it's only after the fact that I remembered that this actually won several Oscars slash Academy Awards. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's not a blockbuster. I don't know that it's a film that many people have seen. My impression is that it was quite successful, but still rather niche. So anyway, The Favorite. Uh, boy, you know, it's an incredible film in quite a lot of ways. I have to say that first and foremost. I laughed the hardest I have in uh, quite a while at this film. This is a black comedy of sorts. It's it's a bit of a satire, bit of a historical drama or a historical fiction. Um, there's a lot going on here, and that's very interesting because of what the film is in terms of its scope and reach and aspirations. In many ways, this is really a more of a character study than anything else, and it's surrounding Queen Anne, who was the one of the monarchs of Great Britain, the newly formed Great Britain, at the uh, beginning of the 18th century. She's a fascinating character in her own right. I mean, a lot of the monarchs of a lot of places turn out to be fascinating characters in retrospect. But Queen Anne has an interesting history all her own. So this is a historical fiction film. It takes some not insubstantial liberties, but not necessarily where you might think. If you are unfamiliar with British history or Queen Anne, you might think a lot more of this is fiction than really is. It's relative. I don't want to call it subdued because it's not. Because monarchs are bizarre, and Queen Anne was her own kind of bizarre. But less about this film is fictional than you might think. But I won't delve into the history too much, or we'll be here all day. Like I said, this is more than anything, it's more of a character study. But that is interesting because the whole thing is couched in the political power and the struggles of individuals at the time, while talking about the war for Spanish succession and like all these other things that I mean, the war for Spanish succession was between like 14 countries or something like that. It was a whole lot. There was a whole lot going on at the time. And the movie doesn't shy away from that, but it doesn't like focus on that in any way. It's very much a background element, but it's so well integrated that, it's very well done. And I think that takes a pretty deft hand to be able to incorporate so many rather disparate elements like that. While the focus is on individuals and relationships and how behaviors affect those relationships, they don't ignore, they don't dumb down the things that surround it. But one thing this movie does very well is just keep its scope to exactly what it needs to be. So everything is set up as minimally as possible. In many ways, this film is very minimalist. It doesn't tell you more than you need to know about any given character, their situation, their political affiliations, their family history. It all comes exactly when it's needed. It never feels like you're being delivered exposition. It's just it's very sparing with explanations. But I say that as a very positive thing because it lets you focus on the things that are important or that the film wants you to focus on. Um, it's incredibly deftly done. At the same time, the actors involved all do an excellent job. Now, like I said, this takes some is a little bit liberal with some of the uh, artistic choices it makes, and there are a not insubstantial amount of actors who are not British in this, but they all do an impeccable job of delivering wonderful, believable characters who are just a little bit, turned up to 11. Like they're not absurd, but I would almost call parts of this. I would call parts of this film like an absurdist satire, but it's done in such subtle ways. The characters themselves are somewhat satirical versions of their historical counterparts, but they never shy away from the history or tell outright lies. It's more of a reinterpretation or a creative imagining of how these sorts of historical events would have gone down and how these relationships would have evolved and the conversations that would have been had. And that's all done really well. And the movie is not afraid to be fun. It's not afraid to be funny. It's not afraid to be sad. It's not afraid to be dramatic. It's not afraid to be crass. It's not afraid to be gross. But every time it does it, any of those things, or sometimes all of them at once, it does it with such a deft touch that I kind of blown away by it. So all the actors do a great job. The main three being Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, are all play their characters wonderfully. All of the sort of secondary characters also do an excellent job. The various parliamentary officials and lords and ladies and things all do a great job. They play the scene exactly like nobody sticks out as a sore thumb or anything like that. They all do a great job, and I really appreciated what they delivered. At the same time, like I said, this is a little bit, it's a little bit absurdist, but it's also very intimate. So seeing the ways that the things that go undocumented, right? If when people write histories, they don't write about they tend not to write about the indignities of normal life. And even though these are, lords and ladies and nobility of England, that doesn't exempt them from a lot of those things. And the movie uses those things to great effect to make you feel essentially, have sympathy or empathy for various characters, and appreciate where they're coming from and why. So I was really, really impressed with all of the acting. That basically comes down to that. As far as the directing and the shot composition and everything, I was really impressed with all of the directing and the cinematography. This is a filmmaker directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. I'm probably butchering that. It's Greek. Who also directed The Lobster and The Killing of a Sacred Deer, both of which are on my to-watch list, but I haven't watched yet. And I'm really impressed with what they did while filming this. They do not shy away from using unusual cameras, unusual lenses, unusual camera angles, unusual camera movements. tracking, unusual, weird tracking shots, 180-degree camera pivots with no cut, um, like sudden weird moves that should be very jarring, but for some reason aren't. Uh, just kind of crazy how many things um, they get away with and work so well, but also like really heavy use of wide angle and even fisheye lenses, which again would feel bizarre, but almost work in this sort of they emphasize the rooms that these people are in, because this is a palace. The tall ceilings, you get to see the whole of a room and appreciate the size of a person in one, or well, it exaggerates that to some extent, and I think that's very much on purpose. And at the same time, you get sort of this feeling of it's almost like you're spying, because of, you know, it's reminiscent of like a what do you call it, surveillance camera or something like that, with a wide angle or fisheye lens. But it's done incredibly well. Likewise, the lighting is, I mean, I was looking for it. They I don't know whether they're just extremely good at hiding it in their shot composition. I mean, it's a Hollywood production, so I'm sure they are. But like most of the time, in most films, you set your camera up and you don't move it that much, and you certainly don't swing it wildly around the room. And they do that quite a bit, which is hard enough on its own. But as far as the lighting goes and the gear that's in these rooms, they seem to use little to no artificial light. It is, they try and keep it as true as possible to the 18th century technology. I mean, they're not like doing anything outrageous or breaking immersion, doing anything anachronistic. But the use of, they really take advantage of these huge windows in this Jacobean mansion that let in tons of natural light. And they really rely on that for all or almost all of the lighting, with the exception of nighttime shots, which are largely lit by fires and candles, to incredible effect, and seem to be not augmented by synthetic lighting. It's done incredibly well, and I was blown away by just how good it looks. There are some artifacts of that, of course, when you and that's, an artistic choice. But there are some artifacts of that when you use, cameras with imperfect lenses, and you use these big windows that let light in. You're going to have blowout and lens effects and things like that. But I don't think it detracts from the beauty of the film in any way. There's one particular shot, there's a couple of shots like this, but there's one in particular shot where there's just this dust filtering over this like dark scene, but it's filtering on a dark scene, but it's being lit by this incredibly bright window, and it's just an amazing shot. There's so many great shots in this film, I can't say that enough. But it's so consistently great that I have to raise it. So I was really blown away by that. The only thing that is a little bit odd is this is not going to bother anyone else, or almost anyone else, except for maybe some British people who know their history particularly well. But they refer to the place that they are as I believe it's Kensington Castle, when it is, which is the ancestral seat of a number of British royalty. It is very clearly not that castle. It's a different castle that shows up in actually a lot of movies, but I don't remember the name of it. But they don't look, they're both Jacobian style, but they look fairly different from the exterior, and they do use enough exterior shots that it's like, if you know, then you know. But it's not going to bother anyone. It's just something I noticed. But I digress. I also want to talk about the outfits, because there's so much of this film. I mean, as much as it uses these wide angles and shots where characters do not often do not fill the frame very well on purpose, they also use a not insubstantial amount of close-ups or very specific framing to get good expressive shots between individuals as they interact. Very close-up, very tight close-ups on either people's torsos or people's heads, and that gets into the costuming, which is just incredible. The costuming is incredible, and this is the one place where they take probably the most creative liberties with things that are not that are completely anachronistic or wouldn't have been possible or wouldn't have looked in a particular way. But as far as enhancing the beauty of the film and doing storytelling with characters' outfits, they take the liberties that they take and the things they are able to create as a result. The beautiful, elaborate patterns, fabrics that are just amazing to look at. These complex gowns and multi-layered suits and all these other things. It both enhances the historical image while also doing, like I said, enhancing the storytelling and the characterization of certain individuals, and simultaneously sort of satirizing the absurdity of that sort of, it's not really Georgian, but it's the aesthetic of the era. The 18th century, 17th, 18th century noble get-ups in Britain. So incredible costuming, deserves all of the credit possible. I actually don't know what the film got its Oscars in. Let me look that up real quick, actually. Unless let's see. Hold on. If I can find it really quick, I will. Oh, it only won one. I believe it only won. It appears to have only won for Coleman as Best Actress, but it got 10 nominations, and it probably deserves more awards, because it really is an incredible film in many ways. Yeah, I mean, there are some aspects of it that are a little underwhelming, or I wanted like a little bit more, but like on the whole, just an incredible experience that I highly recommend to anyone, as long as you can stomach it being a little bit crass or rude or inappropriate in times that were more in keeping with the era. So, yeah. I'm really, really happy that I saw this. I wish I had watched it sooner, and it will certainly influence my future watching choices and how soon I watch those other two films by the same director. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Nope. Not ending the video because I just realized there was one part of it I didn't really address. The other part of it is the structure. As much as this is a character study, the structure itself is a character of its own. Because as much as it's trying to tell an overarching story, the story is broken up in a very smart and very overt way, where the film literally has like chapters to it, where it cuts to black and it shows a title and then it moves on to the next set of scenes. Each scene is great in its own right. Each chapter is great in its own right. But there's something to be said for how the rhythm of the film is broken up by these chapters. And yes, it would still be an incredible film without that, but I think that is also a choice that is more likely to be a negative than a positive. And it reminded me a little bit of, if anyone's familiar with Tristram Shandy, the books are... It reminded me of Tristram Shandy in a variety of ways, but the breakup of the rhythm and the intentional use of offbeats to enhance the story are noteworthy as well. Anyway, now I believe I'm done, unless I forget again, and then, well, once the video's ended, the video's ended. I'm not going back to edit. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys for watching another episode of Solipsist Watched. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen the film or otherwise. And I will see you guys next time.